Welcome to Rising Woman Leaders. I'm your host, Meredith Ram, and I believe the time has come for women to share their gifts, their voice, and their stories. I love seeing women spiritually and financially empowered, thriving in their life's work, and doing what they love every day. I've gathered a community of women living their dreams to tell us their stories and inspire us to step into more courage, self-love, and feminine leadership. If you like this podcast, follow me on Instagram at Rising Woman Leaders and sign up for email updates at risingwomanleaders.com. Now get cozy with a journal and a cup of tea. I hope you enjoy today's show. If you've been on my mailing list this past year, you know I've been going through quite a few transformations. I turned 30, I got married, I moved. I'm in the midst of my Saturn return. I published a book, I went back to India, and most recently I was initiated as a priestess. Most of the past year has felt like being in a cocoon, allowing this metamorphosis to take place. But since coming home from our honeymoon and settling back into my daily routine, I've been feeling my energy become more focused. A mantra I learned from my teacher that I've been saying to myself is I know who I am, I know what I am, I know how I serve, I am. There's something powerful about knowing who we are and how we serve, especially for me after going through all this transformation. I realized that I've been doing this for a while. I've been teaching yoga for 8 years. I've been coaching women for 5. I've been leading this podcast for almost 3.5 years. And there's this new foundation of maturity and of knowing my worth. And I've been spending the last few weeks updating my website to reflect some of these changes. And I'm excited to share it with you now. It's meredithram.com. And along with the new website, I updated and rebranded my free gift for you to tap into this state of knowing who you are and how you wish to serve. The guide is called The Visionary Woman's Guide to Rise and Thrive. It will help you learn how to get clear on your vision, to overcome fears that are holding you back, to tap into intuitive guidance, to harness focus for productivity, all while staying true to your feminine nature. Lately, I've been really excited about supporting women in designing their business, following their dreams, while honoring a feminine way of being and living, of having flexibility in their schedule, location freedom, and the ability to scale their business. This free gift guides you through 8 spiritual and practical tools to do just that. If you're ready for a new vision and you want some guidance on how to start, visit my website, meredithram.com, to download the free guide. Now, I hope you enjoy today's show. Aimee Cartier is a psychic guide who specializes in helping her clients discern what choices are in their highest and best interest so that they have the information they need to act on and align with their own highest good. She is known for her clear, accurate insight and her attention to practical details. She's the founder of Empath Intuition University and Intuition University. In either private or group programs, she works with students who are ready to understand, enhance, trust, and rely upon their innate psychic skills and intuitive knowing, and to experience the empowerment and flourishing that follows. She is also author of the book, Getting Answers, Using Your Intuition to Discover Your Best Life. Thanks for being here, Aimee. Aimee?
Thank you for having me, Meredith.
Yeah, well, I was excited about some of the topics that you shared that you would love to speak about today. One of them being about being empathic, and what does that mean? I'd love to just start there. I'm sure lots of people who listen to this podcast have an idea, or maybe empaths and maybe not know it yet, but I wonder if you could just speak a little bit about what an empath is, what's the difference of being empathic and having empathy with being an empath?
Thank you. Great place to start. And I love that you mentioned that, because a lot of people are empathic that don't even know. So thank you for this question. So I always like to explain it that empathy is a trait that most people have. It's the ability to understand what somebody's going through, to, just kind of understand what's happening for them when you hear it. The difference, however, between having empathy and being empathic is that when you're empathic, instead of just understanding what's happening, you actually feel the other person's experiences in your own skin as though it's happening to you. So that means the emotion, whatever emotion that they're experiencing, it's actually coming through your own body. I often liken it to, when you're empathic, you're basically like a radio receptor. You receive all the broadcasts that are happening around you, and then you also broadcast it out through your own body. So you experience that emotion or sensation within your own skin, like it's happening to you. Is that clear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that can be a huge challenge if you're around stressful people or just constantly feeling people's emotions. Well, how did you first realize that you were empathic? And then I'd also love to go into how do you have good boundaries and how do you protect yourself when you're in that state?
Absolutely. I first discovered I was empathic about 15 years ago. I've been saying 15 years maybe for a couple of years, so I'm not sure, but approximately 15 years ago. And I remember it so clearly because I left my office and I was walking to lunch. It was a beautiful sunny day, and I literally felt ecstatic in my being. I was just really ecstatic. And I remember, I can still picture the steps. They were cream color. They were like really giant kind of steps going up into this building. And I was walking in, and I was very aware of the internal state that I had. And as I walked in, I went to the cafeteria to get my lunch. And it was the kind of cafeteria where there's like a serving things, and then two people can serve themselves on either side, like a self-serve thing. And I walked in and I started dishing out my food, and there was another woman, on the other side getting her lunch. And as I started serving myself my lunch, I realized I suddenly felt like frustrated and uncomfortable and like just kind of really irritated. And I remember having this thought that I couldn't figure out how to finish a chapter of this book. And that happened. And then I remember all of the experience happening so quickly. And then I sat down, I moved away and got my lunch, or went to a table to sit and eat my lunch. And I remember feeling like, what just happened? It was approximately like 15 to 30 seconds between when I was on the steps, really aware of my internal state, and then when I'm suddenly feeling frustrated and irritated. And I wasn't writing a book at that time. So I was also like, where did this even come from? I don't even know what just happened to me. And I remember sitting there and looking around the room, just kind of scanning it. And I noticed the woman who had been on the other side of the serving situation from me. And I knew that she was writing a book. And at the moment that I saw her, I realized what had just happened. I thought, oh my gosh, I literally just downloaded her experience, and I wasn't even paying attention to her. I was just doing my lunch. Just by being in proximity to her, I suddenly felt all of her stuff as though it was my own. And it was sort of like a succession of 3 really impactful thoughts that happened to me. Of one, recognizing what it was and realizing I have been doing this my whole life. And it was sort of shocking to me to realize that. And then also, like, kind of on the heels of that thought was, who am I then? If I have been living I was either 29 or 30, I can't recall actually, when it happened. if I have been living my whole life, 30 years like this, who am I? How can I even know who I am if I've been experiencing everybody else's things so clearly in my own skin as though it was happening to me? So I spent the next about 3 years really just figuring out how to live like this and be in control of my ability, so that I wasn't just downloading anything that I came across whenever it happened, but that I was able to manage my perception I wasn't at the whim and mercy of everything, because we can't control always what happens around us and what we're going to come in contact with. So it was really important to me to know how to be able to flourish as an empathic being and not hide away in the world, but be able to do what I need to do and still live without, without just being, affected by every single thing that happens.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, did you start researching about it, or did you find a teacher or start reading books? What gave you some tools to learn about how to, clear your energy or create boundaries?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And for me at the time, I did not know the word empathic at that time, of course. And I'm not even sure when I came across it, honestly. But shortly after that happened, I moved to where I live now, to Vashon Island, and it was a huge change in my life. And so what happened for me is that I spent about a year alone, and it's not entirely accurate, because of course I had friends and I went places and things, but I was so specific about what I chose to do, even if I chose to answer the phone, etc. So for me, it was more of really internally playing around with it and watching my own energy, seeing what happened, noticing the interactions, how I was affected. And then I just started to develop techniques that allowed me to be able to be with other people and have them have the freedom of feeling whatever they're feeling, and me have the freedom of keeping connected to my own self. So I think for me, it was really just really deep internal looking that allowed me to develop what I now teach in my Empath and Intuition University programs.
What are some of the common traits and characteristics of empathic people?
Yeah, really good question. Well, the first one, or one of the very obvious ones, is they often have a very clear sense of another person's emotional state and their energy, even without the other person having said anything at all. So somebody can walk into a room and an empathic person knows exactly what the emotional vibe is of that person. And especially if anything extreme is happening for them, they know it without even getting eye contact or, speaking to that person. So that's a very obvious one. Generally, they also have a really strong sense of either being naturally repelled by somebody or naturally drawn to someone. You just kind of know, you're like, yes, this is a yes for me, or no, I no, just going to stay away from that over there. Another characteristic that they have is they're very deep feelers. So, like, for example, I always compare my husband, because he's not empathic. Thankfully, I'm so glad. But for him, it can be like, oh, that's sad. And for an empathic person or me, I'm like, oh my God, you're like bawling along with the terrible story. It's like really affecting you. So they're really deep feelers. They feel other people's stuff, and their own emotions are also very deep for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is interesting, because I have a feeling my husband is very empathic. And I think I have some of the qualities, but I've always had a pretty good sense of being able to put up boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times when, let's say I have a bad day or something, or I just need to be sad about something, and he can feel it. And I don't want to invade his space. I'm not trying to do that. But what are some tools that like we could use? What are some tools that he could use? Is there anything that I could do as the person who might just be feeling something? And
yeah, well, that's really good. Well, just verbally out loud, just speaking from your point of view, especially one of the things I mean, I say this to my husband, even if he was not empathic, when I need to feel things, I just acknowledge it out loud of like, it's okay. I need to feel this, but I'm, just making some kind of acknowledgement of, you don't have to fix me or save me or even help me in this case. Like my work right now is really just feeling this. And sometimes I feel like, just acknowledging that out loud. I do that also with my children of like, it's okay to feel. It's part of the thing that happens. That can be helpful just to acknowledge from your part of like, I'm okay. I mean, I'm not okay, but I am okay.
Yeah.
And then, excuse me, for the empath, it's really important to clear your energy and to set up, a natural boundary for yourself. And this is all part of what I teach in my longer programs, but really quickly, clearing your energy is really simple. And I'd be happy to watch. Do you want to walk through it right now?
Yeah. Let's do it.
So the way that I usually do this is it's so simple. In fact, all of the tools are so simple. It just takes practicing them. But the way that I usually do it is this one comes down to 2 sentences. It's only 2 sentences. So I like to say the sentence and then you can repeat after me in your mind or out loud, depending for the audience, whoever wants to make that choice. And then I like to leave a little space so that you can feel whatever it is. You can just notice what sensations you experience around after you've said it. And then I'll do the same one with the second sentence, where I'll lead you in the sentence. You can repeat after me inside or out loud. And then just notice what you feel, what you experience. Okay, so go ahead and take a deep breath. It's just always good to start with deep breaths. And then simply say, I ask that anyone else's energy leave me now.
I ask that anyone else's energy leave me now.
I ask that all of my own energy return to me now.
I ask that my own energy return to me now.
So sometimes people notice sensations or experiences, especially a lot of times with empathic people, they'll have an experience. It comes from, there's not really a formula. I've noticed in all of my teaching, it's very individualized to the person. sometimes, like for me, when I clear my energy, when I'm holding a lot, sometimes it's like a whoosh, like it all just leaves. Or trickles back if I have left a lot of energy bookmarking different things around. People sometimes also notice physical sensations. So like I just taught this last night, a softening in the belly was one woman's, releasing of shoulders was another woman's. So there's no right or nothing. And there's no right or wrong way to experience this. Whatever you experience is totally fine and perfect.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah. Would you say this is the most important tool that you teach?
Yes.
Empaths?
That and creating your boundary, which is it's a little bit longer process, but it's also really easy. And you can, the gist of it is you can imagine it in your mind. I mean, that's where everything starts. So you use your mind to create a perimeter around yourself where it's just you inside of there, and outside is everyone else's energy. That allows you to be able to just to feel your own energy, because it can actually be a problem for empathic people. If your voice is just one of many, it's sometimes very hard to discern what you want or what you feel or what's happening for you. So just using your mind to create that it literally makes all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. I have had a friend teach me like the golden egg, kind of just imagining that like energy field around you, kind of like a boundary or whole containing your energy.
Absolutely. That's precisely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts or insights, just knowing that we're going into the holidays and this can be a particularly charged time for some people? Any thoughts or tips or on just going into the holiday season if you know you're an empathic or sensitive person?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Because it can be a little bit, we come in contact with a lot more people during this time of year too. There's office parties or, your family get together, etc. So one of the most important things for empaths to keep in mind is that the amount that you feel is not equal to the amount of time that you have a hand in helping the situation. For empaths, they're often like they overgive. I call us like the overgivers or the say yesers. They feel a need and they're like, yes, I'll do it before. And they can do it to the point of depleting themselves, like over guessing before they check in and with themselves. And I think it's just really important for empaths to know that just because you feel it doesn't mean you have a hand in helping it. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. Like given the example that you were mentioning, Meredith, with your husband, of like, sometimes it's just for you to feel. There's no action point for him. He just, that's what you need to feel. But there's no necessarily action point for the empath. So I think it's so important to keep in mind, especially during the holidays, because the default of the empath is you want to help, you want to make it feel better. You can feel people's pain and what they're going through, and you absolutely want to help them.
Yeah. That's probably the pattern that we have. He's like, I want to help.
Totally. Yeah. And if you're empathic, you can feel pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And your role to help pretty much everything.
Yeah. And sometimes they want to help just so they can feel better.
Absolutely. You totally have it, Meredith. I always say that when I'm teaching my classes of like, we have to all recognize that there is an element of self-preservation in wanting to help other people, especially for the empathic person, because it's uncomfortable to feel someone else's stuff in your body and have that happening around you. So of course we want to help people and we feel for them, but you also want that to stop, like that pain or whatever it is that you're experiencing. So absolutely, that is an important piece of it. It's just for us all to know when we're going forward.
I'm curious what you would say is the connection between being empathic, being psychic. Like, have you noticed that a lot of empaths also have those abilities, or do you think that anyone can be psychic if they're willing to like put the time and energy into learning that, or is it something that's a gift that some people have? Because I know you teach about intuition and empath and psychic tools. Yeah.
Great question. So for me, being empathic is just one of many possible psychic traits. There are many that you can have. Like for example, in my life, I call it a seer, or having the ability to see forward in time. That's another psychic trait. That's what I use obviously in my work when I do readings and things. But and there's a lot that goes with an empathic ability, of course, when you can feel things that are happening for people. There's a lot of insight and intuition, absolutely, that is involved in it. But for me, it feels like it's just one of many psychic traits that you can have. And I feel like intuition and intuition and psychic senses are very similar. I mean, they're pretty much interchangeable for me. They're just different ways of describing different things. And I feel like everybody has access to intuition. Absolutely. And I do also feel like it's particular to you. Like, for example, you may be empathic and someone else next to you may not. That's one trait. You may have foresight, like I was mentioning, someone else may not. You may be really connected with nature and being able to really understand and feel nature. That's another trait that I would consider within the psychic traits. So there are a lot of different ones, and I feel like everybody has access to intuition. Absolutely. It's a sixth sense, as it's frequently called, that I believe its purpose is to help you flourish. And I also feel like, just like we're all each individual and unique, it's different from person to person. And that's primarily why I developed my private program, because I wanted people to be able to dial their specific formula, whatever it was for them. Because I've seen over the years, having done readings for so long, that it's very true, even though it sounds cliche, that we are all really unique. And that includes the way we get intuitive information and the way answers and information comes to us through our regular senses and our psychic ones.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, one question I've been thinking about is just like what we're going through in the world right now. And I'm curious if you have any insights or thoughts around just this. Things are getting pretty difficult for a lot of people and just in the greater world. And I'm in California right now, and there've been all these big fires, and just like things are really being shaken up in a lot of ways. And so on one hand, like I imagine you have some thoughts on just how we can kind of cope and just all the things that are happening in the world as sensitive people. But also if you have any thoughts on just what is happening and, on this greater kind of level of taking a step back, like, are we ascending into, some kind of greater paradigm or consciousness? And I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
That's an interesting question. I feel very clearly that change is afoot, and I feel like we can see it it's everywhere. I was just recently at a presentation by Michael Meade, mythologist, and I just remember being in the audience and thinking, wow, even the world is different now than it was 2 years ago when I was sitting in the same room listening to him. It's almost on the daily that we're experiencing tragedy and trauma in the news, that it's happening. And it does feel sped up. So I think it's more important than ever now I think we can all feel that change is happening. Absolutely. And I also feel it's more important than ever for each one of us to really connect in with our own knowing, with our own being and who we are, and hold that presence going forward, because what's needed more than anything in this time period of moving forward of all this tumultuousness happening all around us are individuals who can hold that presence and who can be standing in their own truth and power despite what is going on around them, and be, or in spite of it, purposefully really modeling a way of being that we can all understand and use going forward, because it's so easy to get caught up in the fear and the trauma. We've collectively as a culture, we have in very out loud ways recently experienced a lot of trauma with sexual assault and all kinds of things like that. And I absolutely feel that there's deep healing going on with all of these things being put to the fore. And I feel like each one of us can really help that by just getting very, very connected with our own selves and beings, and understanding, doing the things that we need to be able to be in a good place, whether that's extra baths or clearing your energy, as we just talked about for empaths, and creating some sort of a boundary for yourself so that you are not having to feel everything. Because when you do, it can really throw you off course. It really can. It's so crazy making and tumultuous inside to feel everything that is happening. And I really feel like it's more important than ever, as I keep saying, for people, really, for all of us, especially leaders in the world and those that are doing their thing, to really get grounded and in tune with ourselves so that we can be positive role models going forward in a world that sometimes really feels like it's falling apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard the metaphor that it's almost like a birth process, and sometimes it gets really messy, like right before this new, beautiful being enters into the world, and kind of like the earth is going through that too.
Yes.
But I wonder if you could actually lead us through your version of setting a boundary, just what you usually use, and if you could guide us through that.
Yeah. So I always start by clearing your own energy. So we've already done that, but I like to say that out loud because you want to clear first to make sure that it's just you in there.
Okay.
And then go ahead and close your eyes. Take a couple deep breaths. And with your inward gaze, scan your body and see if you can find the place where the bulk of your own energy is holding. And when you have that place, you're just going to gently pull on some of your energy, on some of your own energy, until it's coming out of your body. And you're going to use that energy, which is just you, to create, and I call it an egg or a bubble around yourself. That means that every part of you is within this egg. Your feet, your fingers, your head, every piece of you is completely surrounded by your own energy. Inside this egg is only you. Everyone else's energy stays outside. Now, this is the way that I teach this always when I first am starting it, because I want you to know, this is how I taught myself all those years ago, because I wanted to know that it was just me inside. So I used my own energy, as I just walked you through, to do the same. But that being said, you don't have to pull from your own energy. You can, to me, it generally now just feels like you just pop your egg in place. It can be made of anything. You can use colors. You can use, I've had students who are like, mine is fleecy on the inside, and then it has multiple layers and has something else going on the outside. So you literally just use your imagination. And the more that you practice with it, the more it just becomes, you're not even trying. It's just what your egg looks like today this is what it is. But the important thing of it is that you have a boundary. You've created a space just for your own being inside, and everyone else's energy, as I said, stays outside. It's the other piece that I always like to say for this, because is that it does not disconnect you from what's happening around you. It does not make you unaware of what exists in front of you. It does, however, especially if you're empathic, keep you from having to run through your own body everything else you're coming in contact with, or you're you're sensing, because empaths don't necessarily have to be in a room with somebody to be sensing things, especially when big major shifts are happening. They will feel that even in their own living room without turning on the news. They'll sense big movements.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you. I feel grounded, centered. So a big part of your work is teaching these tools to other people. You have this Empath Intuition University. Could you tell us a little bit about your teaching, and how do you do that online or in person, and what does that look like?
Yeah, thank you. It's all over the phone. And I do it purposely because empaths are so sensitive. I really want everybody, I want each person to be able to learn these tools in their own space and practice them. It's not really about what the person next to you is feeling or having, what's happening for them. It's really about the tools that allow you to feel yourself and get connected with yourself, among many other things. But so they're all over the phone. I teach my Empath Intuition University twice a year. I have one that starts in the fall, and that's a 4-month program, and we meet every week via phone. And then the one that starts in January, at the end of January, is a 7-month program, and it's the same program. It's just that starting in January, we meet every other week. So I have had students from all over the world, literally, in our classes, and I can't remember exactly the number, but it's like approximately 15 classes where we go through. It's in succession, where we start with the tools that we've just talked about today, and then in the beginning of the classes are really tools for helping you balance and maintain your own energy and get connected with your own highest knowing, things like that. And then we move into, toward the end, we're getting to how empaths can affect the world, how we can positively use our gift to uplift and to uplift others and ourselves and others.
Wonderful. I also wanted to just ask you about your book, because I have been reading it and just curious about, so it's called Getting Answers. And what I've taken away so far is just, it's a lot about asking the right questions and kind of posing them to the universe or writing them in your journal. And could you share a little bit about what that means to ask the right questions, and just anything else you want to share about your book?
Yeah, absolutely. I wrote this book because I wanted other people to know that anybody can get answers. Anybody can. I don't even feel like I invented it. I feel like it's something seers have known for ages, and it's really simple. You just have to ask questions, quite literally. So, it's a process that I love. I use it obviously in my own life all the time. And the gist, as you said, is really about asking questions. In my book, I break it down into a 4-step formula. And the first one is align with the highest, is what I call it. And that's because you don't just want any answer, or you want the one that is in your own highest and best interests and aligns with the best possible thing. So you start with that, and you can either do that by intention or by addressing your question to whatever word you use for source or divine, whatever is most comfortable for you or resonates with you. And then you simply start asking questions. And once you do, life answers you. The answers to your questions unfold in sometimes miraculous and very interesting ways, from like something you overhear at the grocery store or on the radio, or somebody just arrives on the scene with exactly the answer that you had asked yourself earlier. I have tons of examples in my book, and obviously so many even more in my regular life, because I've been doing this for so many years. So, but the gist is really that you align with the highest, you ask the question, and then you receive the answer. And I talk about the ways that it often comes and expanding your awareness to make sure that you're getting the answers. But even that is, I guess what I want to say simply on this is that you will receive the answers. In my experience, it's always 100%. When you ask, you get the answer. And you can't control the timing of it, of course. It'd be nice if you could, but you can't. But once you ask, you always get an answer. And then the last step is act, because you have to act on the answer you get in order to get the goodness. Otherwise, it's as though it didn't happen. So, just really briefly, those are the steps. And I still feel great affection for this book because obviously it's something that I use all the time. And anyway, it makes me happy to talk about it and for others to know how simple it is. You guys, it's so easy. Anybody can do it.
Yes, I've been coming up with lots of questions the last few days since I've been reading it. And I think that hard part around the patience is that can be a challenge. But yeah, trusting that the answers always come. Sometimes it takes a while, sometimes it comes immediately.
Yeah.
Keep being on the lookout for them.
Totally. And you don't have to do anything special. You literally just have to live your life. Spirit, universe, however you refer to it, it knows where you are. It knows what you're going to come in contact and what you're going to be doing. And that's part of the magic and the beauty of it. Absolutely. So.
Wonderful. Do you have anything else that you're excited about just in your business or anything else you want to share? It sounds like you also do one-on-one sessions, psychic readings or intuitive sessions.
Yeah, that's true. I do. One other thing that occurs to me to mention in terms of my empath work is if you're in the Seattle area, I teach every month at our beloved East West Bookshop. And I teach an understanding your empathic ability there. I think it's always the second Tuesday, and it's an 1.5-hour thing. So if you're in this area ever, you can always find me there in person. Because as I've said, most of my teaching is on the phone, and that's where I do most of my readings too. So, like you said, I do readings for people. I do it from half an hour to an hour. It depends. People choose their time. And, I honestly love every aspect of what I do. I love the readings. I love teaching empaths. And then I also have my private intuition university. And that oftentimes they're empaths that come, but it's not necessarily empathic people. And that's a 6-month program really for women. I generally work with women who they know that generally who come, I mean, anybody, it's very tailored to the individual, and it meets you exactly where you're at and what you're wanting to achieve in your life in terms of where you want to amplify your own intuitive senses. But generally it's for women who already know they're intuitive and they want to be able to use it as a precision instrument. They want to know more detailed information about how theirs works. They want to use it as one of the tools in their lives that they use to better their work in the world, whatever it is they do.
Yay. So glad you're doing this work.
Thank you. Me too.
Yeah. So do you have any closing words for us before I end this call with a short prayer?
I guess I would not really, but yes, I do, I guess. I just want to go back to the sense that we all have deep wisdom within us, each one of us, and how so important it is for us each to pay attention to that and rely upon that and trust it going forward to set a vibe and a tone that will help each of us move into the next whatever is being birthed, as you mentioned, Meredith, in your analogy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll invite everyone listening to just take a moment to center in and to breathe that in and to feel it within their body, that deep embodied wisdom that we all have. knowing that we have these tools and this power to clear our energy, to create a sense of boundary if we need it, that we can be of great support in the world with this ability to feel so deeply, to be intuitive and sensitive, knowing that those are great skills, assets that so many of us are carrying and haven't known what to do with. So in this space, just knowing that that it's valuable. So I'll bring my hands to my heart and thank you, Aimee, for being here today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And also thank you to everyone listening, just showing up and being curious and taking these tools out into your lives. So namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, Meredith and all.
Thanks so much for taking the time to listen to our show today. We would love to hear what you think. Take a moment to hop on over to iTunes and leave us a review. We'd be so grateful to receive it. Until next time, namaste.